So let's talk about nasality. And I think for many speakers, this can be something that they really, really want to try and reduce. When they perceive it in their voice and they hear it in a recording, it's something that people often want help with when they come and work with myself. So in this video, I firstly want to talk more about what you're actually hearing, what's happening and why you're hearing that sound. And secondly, and maybe more importantly, I'd like to share with you some ways you can actually start to reduce that nasal tone in your voice. But before I say any more about all of that, I just want to differentiate between the two different types of nasality in the voice. So the first one is very common. I think we've all experienced the first one at some point in our life, and it's called hyponasality. And what this means is essentially the nose is blocked. And that could be from a cold, it could be from a sinus infection, it could be from an allergy, but there's just simply not enough air going through the nose. And so the nose sounds stuffed and blocked. Now, when the cold or the infection or the allergy clears, then the nose is clear again and it's all great. If you find that you fall into this camp, but your nose doesn't clear up and there's nothing that you can sort of directly link to that sort of stuffy sounding nose, please do go and get it checked out, because it could be pointing to something deeper or more structural. So please do get checked out always. But in this video, I'm talking about the other type of nasality, the one that's more common in speech, which is hypernasality. And this is when essentially there's too much air going into the nose. So it's like this, and I talk through the nose like this. So my sound is going through the nose. Now, what can often happen with this when we hear a lot of nasality in people's voices, it can also often include a lot of constriction in the throat. So it ends up being quite a squeezed and thin sound. So you don't get that full, rich, powerful, resonating voice. So that's one of the big reasons why people come and work with me on this type of thing, because you can only sort of project a voice so much when it's quite nasal. So to understand hypernasality, we need to understand the soft palate. And the soft palate, or the velum, you'll actually be able to see it at the back of your throat if you look, see the bit sort of hanging down at the back of your throat. And essentially what the soft palate does is it's like a doorway between the nose and the mouth. So if this is the soft palate and this is my mouth and this is my nose, I know you've got to really use your imagination. When the soft palate is down, it's sealing off the mouth. So the air is going into the nose. When the soft palate is raised, it's sealing off the nose and the air is going into the mouth. Now in speech, and I'm specifically talking here about English, the soft palate needs to be quite dynamic, because there are certain sounds that we make where we do need a bit more air going into the nose. So for example, like an N, a N. If you put your fingers on your nose and you say an N, 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 you will hopefully feel a vibration or a tingling in your nose, which is perfectly normal because an N is a nasal consonant. Conversely, when the soft palate is up and there's more sound going into the mouth, a consonant like a B or a B is very mouthy, and it's a plosive sound made with the doorway to the nose closed. So the soft palate is up and sealing off the nose. So B. It's hard to say B with a sort of nasal tone. However, I think it is still possible, but it's much, much harder. So B is much, much harder. So ideally, we want this dynamic soft palate that moves freely and easily, but the majority of the sound is going to go into the mouth, because most of the sounds we make are more, let's say, mouthy versus nasally. Also, when we utilize the mouth cavities more, it's actually going to give us a much more rich, powerful tone, because the nasal cavity is actually full of soft tissue and it's not as effective as a resonator. So that's one of the main reasons, if we actually want to find a more resonant voice, we do need to utilize that kind of mouth cavity more than that nasal cavity. But we can still absolutely create sounds that are nasal sounds, but just have a bit more of that fuller, richer quality or tone to them. So first of all, I just want to build a little bit of awareness around the soft palate, because I think for many people, they don't really have much of an awareness of it. And it's really about building a bit more of a kinesthetic awareness of just feeling the subtleties of when it does move. So all I'd like you to do is breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now, hopefully, if you really tune in, you can feel some movement in the back. You can feel the soft palate moving. The soft palate lowers as we breathe in, and then it rises again when we breathe out. Just see if you can start to pay attention to that. It's very subtle, particularly if you're not used to it. You might want to shut your eyes and do this. It's actually a really nice calming exercise anyway, but just start to get that sense of movement in your soft palate. Now, in order to ascertain how sort of nasal you are, or do you indeed have a lot of nasality in your voice, quite a nice way of checking this out, and also you can then utilize it as an exercise moving forward, is to say the vowel ah, ah, ah. Now, this is not a nasal vowel. The sound should be in your mouth. Ah, 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 which means that even if I pinch my nose, the sound doesn't change. Ah, 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 ah. Then let's do the opposite. So let's take something that we know is a nasal sound. So an NG, like the end of sing, that is a nasal sound. And by definition, we're literally sealing off the mouth. So it's going into the nose. Sing, So start to feel the difference between saying an ah, and an ah. Everyone will think you're mad. And just feel that difference. Firstly, in terms of, can you feel that slight subtlety of movement of the soft palate, but also start to pay attention to the different vibrations. Where are you feeling that as you say that? And then you can take that a step further. And if you did find, for example, when you said ah, but it was a little bit nasal, just see if you can bring that sound a lot more forward. Ah, ah, and really imagine your instrument is at the end of your lips. Ah, ah, and see if you can get as much forward as you can. So we're really directing the sound forward versus allowing some of that sound to sort of leak into the nose. So another exercise you can try to start to bring more of that sound into the mouth is saying the consonant G, which is a G, G. Now, when you produce a G, it is the back of the tongue and the soft palate kissing at the back of the mouth, and then they come apart and there's this sort of explosion of sound into the mouth. G, G. So practice that first of all. I would encourage you to keep your lips slightly rounded. You don't have to do that, but it's just to avoid that pulling everything back. So G, G. And then you can start to say things like good, gug, and really bring the sound forward and feel it in your mouth. Feel the vibrations, feel that resonance, particularly if you know you're someone that has a lot of sort of nasality in your voice. So practice that first of all. Finally, another little thing you can try is alternating between an and an ah. Ah. Now an M, much like an N, is also a nasal consonant. So we want some of that sound to go into the nose, but we don't want it to be so it's still got that richer depth to it, but there is going to be some vibrations in the nose. So see if you can alternate between a and then an ah, which we did earlier, which is really all mouth. So, ah, and see if you can really differentiate between those two sounds, where one is, there's a bit of a vibration in the nose, and the other, it's all in the mouth. And it really is just a practice of this, but also becoming more attuned with what's going on, and where are you feeling the vibrations, where are you feeling the sound, and then being much more mindful when you do practice. But I promise you, if you start to practice these exercises, it will make a big difference. So I hope that that has helped. Please do feel free to post any questions below. If not, I will see you on the next video.